up a separate window. It'd be good to have the YouTube link up so you could see people's questions on the side. You'll be able to see the chat.
I'll open that up right now. I think I have it. Let me see.
I think we
Yep.
are, in
No,
fact, live.
we are live right now, everybody. So
So
we're
watch
here.
the words.
Hey.
Watch the curse words.
Okay.
No, James. See, James is asking if no, we have never interviewed Dan. This is our first interview with Dan.
So Dan, I don't want you to give any private information away. Okay, just FYI, my
No social
information.
security number. Give
No
that to us
social
offline,
security
please.
numbers. No, not where I live or anything, because Dan was someone I was talking to, and just to introduce you, Dan is from Solar Bear Energy, and I'm doing a solar install, and he's actually an installer I contacted, and he was a hair away from getting my business, and it was so close. And I still, believe me, I'm going to use this guy. This is nothing against Solar Bear Energy. I just went with my old company. That was the only thing. I just went with the one that I already used before. But Dan is probably going to be installing my battery next year, because I am, and we're going to talk about this, but he has a very interesting solution for the battery, and it's not an Enphase product. And I'm probably not going to be putting that in my house, the Enphase battery. So I want to get into all of that. Do you want to quickly just introduce yourself and where you are and what you guys do?
Sure. Appreciate the time today, guys. My name's Dan Connolly. I'm the owner, the founder of Solar Bear Energy. I got involved in solar, back in California when I was in my 20s. I started working for some big solar companies who have gone public, and we got a really, in 2012 is really when I started getting involved in solar, and then I realized that there's a lot of focus on these leasing programs and these power purchase agreements. And I really wanted to do the best thing I could, as a sales manager. And I found a small company out in Arizona that had was offering ownership, and I realized that these a lot of the companies that these big companies weren't really focused on the best interest of the homeowners. And it wasn't until I started working for a small family-owned company in Arizona, which I realized how much better it was to own solar and for people to receive all the credits and the tax incentives themselves. So I, called my father, who's an electrical engineer, and we really started digging in to figure out how we can help people, go solar in Pennsylvania, my hometown. And in 2016. We finally established the company after a couple of years of hard work and studying, and we learned how to, implement a variety of different kinds of solar installs for homeowners. And we've done a couple of small businesses as well. And it's been, of course, challenging, but we're very grateful for the challenges because it's certainly helped us grow and learn a lot along the way. And ultimately, we like to, provide the really high quality equipment at the best options as far as financing goes and price goes. We do a really good job, I believe, as far as getting, getting the best stuff out there on the market and adapting to the new things that are always changing in the industry.
So, Carlos, let me just ask this question at least. When you started, I think we went over this before we went live. You're not only an Enphase installer. Can you go into that, all of the systems you worked with?
Sure.
And what you do currently?
Yep. Enphase is now our primary go-to as far as non-battery systems. When we first established the company, we were, for the first 3 years or so, we were doing Solar Edge. Then, the Solar Edge actually had a little bump in the road where they had their monitoring chips all needed to be upgraded, and they weren't honoring the costs to go out there and upgrade their monitoring. So we kind of broke up with Solar Edge at that time. Since then, they fixed their problems, and they're certainly a great company. They were going through some struggles there, I think, at the time.
What year was this?
I want to say 2019, 2020. Probably closer to 2020. In that range. But that was a problem not only for us, but for installers across the country. So a lot of people kind of tried some new products. SolarEdge is kind of the name, the name of the game at that time. And then that's when Enphase really got popular. A lot of people, a lot of installers across the country were, going with Enphase. They're offering a 25-year warranty. The microinverter model was certainly a hot selling point. Well, SolarEdge offered optimization in each solar panel, but it was very similar to a microinverter where one goes on each panel, and it didn't convert the energy there on each solar panel like the microinverters from Enphase do. It would optimize each panel and then go into a string inverter. And so it was more involved, the SolarEdge. So we found going to Enphase was a cleaner, easier install. And
it's interesting you say that. I don't know if I can interject for a second, but a lot of SolarEdge people say the easy thing is that they don't even count that you have to install an optimizer under each panel. They say like it's just one inverter. That's what they say. But in terms of the work, you're actually saying it's more to do that than it is an Enphase system?
Well, it is because we always added optimizers. Now that was an option. It didn't need to have. You can do it in the string, which would be less work in that sense. But it was always nice to have the customers and ourselves monitor each individual panel, which when you put an optimizer on the bottom of each solar panel, it's very similar to putting a microinverter. And then, of course, the microinverters all come into a combiner box into the Enphase system, which is similar to a similar setup. It's really not that much different. It's just really conversion from the DC to AC, being on the roof with the microinverters as opposed to on the side of the building near the meter with the string inverters.
So I have two questions for you.
Sure.
The first one would be, so you as an installer, what is the number one determining factor or series of determining factors that have you offer to your clients a SolarEdge system versus an Enphase system?
So at this time, it's just, our flow and availability of equipment through our distributors is, best with Enphase. So, really nothing, from what I understand, and, SolarEdge has really fixed their monitoring issues, and, they're now, taking care of the service costs and stuff. If there's a faulty equipment, SolarEdge, back in the day, they wouldn't, pay for, our costs to go out there and replace it. Of course, they would honor the warranty on the manufacturers, but now they've fixed their program where they pay for, our time as well as replacing the cost of the equipment for a certain period of time. So, both manufacturers offer that now, where, back when we were installing SolarEdge 3 to 4 years ago, they didn't have that option.
Is there a third player that we're missing? Because everybody talks about these two guys, SolarEdge and obviously Enphase. Is there a third one that
SunPower's another one that's getting some traction out here?
In terms of the inverters, who are you looking at? Who are you looking at besides these two?
There's so many good reputable companies out there. SMA is probably the most popular inverter system. That's the grandfather of the inverters in the industry. Mm-hmm. They've been around for 20 plus years. SMA, particularly the Sunny Boy, that's a very popular inverter system. That's known for reliability. It's been around, very inexpensive. However, they up until very recently, they kind of had just an old school string inverter. They didn't really have all the nice new monitoring things. It's only been very recently where they've really stepped up and become, upgraded their systems into a more modern solar solution.
So you're saying they're also doing optimizers now? Is this what you're saying?
They, as far as I know, they don't have optimizer option.
Okay.
But there's other.
I'm on their website now. Yeah.
So how do they do a per panel watch of the system, or that doesn't matter to them?
That's the thing, is they don't, they don't have a per panel watch per system. It goes by strings. At least not that I'm aware of. However, it does integrate with other, like PV links, for example. There's other manufacturers that you can get the system to communicate with the, with the string inverter. You would monitor it through that, those optimizers. That platform, for example, PV Links has their own monitoring platform, and so you would monitor the system through that as opposed to the SMA.
I've had a question since 2019
Sure.
when I originally had my SolarEdge system that no one's ever been able to answer. And I'm curious if you've had this experience. The reason why I got rid of my SolarEdge system is because we found that I have an electric water heater here. And so when that thing kicks on, it's a massive draw on the system. What we found is every time the water heater would come on, the electric water heater, it would shock the solar inverter, and I would lose production. So for the entire time that we had the water on, the solar system would not produce. And so I would see these massive dips in my production throughout the day. And the original installer sent an electrician 4 times trying to fix the problem. They never were able to. And then we found that contractually, I had actually paid for an Enphase system, and they sold me a SolarEdge system. So I had them remove the SolarEdge equipment and give me the Enphase system, and I haven't had an issue since. My question is that something that you've ever run into?
No, I can't say we have. I can't say we've ever run into that issue.
Okay, so there's never is there anything that you can think of that would cause the solar inverter to shut down production? It was reading it as an error because they were able to log into the system and see, and it was reading it as like an overload error. Is there anything that you've ever seen where other devices on that's drawing from the home can actually trigger like a false alarm on the inverter side?
Not when it's just a grid tied system. This wasn't a battery backup system, correct?
Oh, it was 2019, so battery tech wasn't really where it's at today. And so, with of course with the battery systems, then you do see that. If you get a surge current or a continuous current that's going to exceed the manufacturer's allowed input, then it will shut down for 5 minutes with the battery backup system. That is what you're referring to. That sounds like something was potentially hooked up incorrectly, but you had electricians come out and they came out 4 times trying to fix and diagnose the problem. Eventually, when we got rid of the SolarEdge system and put the Enphase microinverters, and where the inverter was, they put the combiner box. Since then, I haven't had an issue.
Yeah, that should not have happened from the beginning. Because it's 2 separate systems. Essentially, it sounds like they might have just hooked up the whole system to maybe to the AC side instead of the DC. I'm not sure how that could have happened. It doesn't really make sense.
Interesting. Well, thank you. I've been looking to try to get some sort of answer to that. It's something that we'll never know.
Sorry, I'll be a little further on that.
And so I'm sure that Vitaly is checking. I think he got an issue. I guess he's coming back on. So that what we run here is it's a finance channel, and so a lot of, even though Vitaly and I are both super interested in the tech, a lot of what we try to do when we discuss with these installers is trying to get some real world like data and information. You're back. I was like, where did he go? That was it. So I said,
that's Biden taking me out.
We try to get sort of like on the boots on the ground information about these companies that aren't necessarily available publicly, and stuff that you wouldn't see in an earnings call, right? So what I'd like to, a question that I had, which I'd love to get answered as well, is, okay, so do you do any of these, or do any of your current systems have vehicle chargers on them? Like, is that part of the service that you provide? And do you also have you done any of these systems where you do vehicle to grid?
So we've done a handful of EV chargers beside along with the solar installations. It's funny, actually at my property here, we got one of the last SolarEdge systems we did was with when for a short period of time, I'm not sure if SolarEdge still has this. I think the last time I checked, they didn't have it anymore. But they had a available model where the inverter actually had the EV charger built right into it. So I actually had that installed at my property because we had my wife and I picked up the Model 3. And that just hit 104,000 miles, by the way. But we've charged our car in right from the sun. For the past 4 years, we plug it in right to our SolarEdge. Right into our SolarEdge.
It's funny that you said that, because that was actually my follow-up question. In trying to find, say, a bull case for SolarEdge versus Enphase, I was wondering if the fact that the SolarEdge inverter is by definition a higher wattage than any individual Enphase microinverter, if it's possible to have vehicle to grid using the inverter that you're already using for your solar panels to do the conversion, to take the energy from the battery into the house in the same way that the solar panels go through the inverter and power the home. And the question would then be, if something like that to be available on an Enphase system, that would require in the installation of another piece of hardware, correct?
Yes, yeah, it would. Enphase does offer their own EV chargers now.
They're expensive. They're expensive.
They are expensive. Yep. So
SolarEdge, by the way, is releasing. I don't know if you're keeping up, but they're releasing sort of a bi-directional charger right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if I missed this part, but are you going to use SolarEdge again, or you're not? You're still.
We're open to it. It's we our string inverters. Our go-to as far as string inverter is a Solark, SOL-ARK. And that's a extremely robust inverter. It just when you compare it to its competitors like Solark or SolarEdge, Enphase, the Tesla systems, the LG, it's the most robust. It's a true off-grid system. You can run a full 200 amp service on a Solark inverter, with the 15K. And
what does an inverter like that cost you?
Our cost is somewhere in the $8,000 range.
I would expect.
Well, what is it installed? What is the install cost for the inverter?
Like
and I assume you need batteries
for you, Vitaly.
Actually, I do have the numbers. He sent me the numbers, so
he's fact checking you live on the internet.
So
I'm going to negotiate
for the inverter, and then there's more that goes into it. Of course, when we do a full installation, a retail value, there's the battery cabinet, and we do the 5 kilowatt hours each of each battery. We typically quote 10 kilowatt hours. With the Solark inverter, you can continuously add to it. So you're looking at the low 20s after with the battery cabinet, with the sub panel, with the inverter, and all the labor involved. The Solark system starts off around 20 grand and goes up from there.
So I have a follow-up, because look, you're actually giving us some other options to use besides Enphase. Why are people even doing these? Because I see channels. Why are they using inverters at all? Like, if the cheapest thing to do right now is just to go 20 grand, have a Solark, and you obviously need the solar panel, so 30 grand maybe. It seems like it's half the price of installing all of these microinverters. Is that true, or no? Is that not true?
No, not necessarily. It depends. So the Solark system would be more if you go with a smaller system. However, if in a circumstance where you do need a lot of microinverters, then it could actually be more cost feasible to go with a Solark system. It is a pricey system, and you get a lot more with the Solark. Solark really is a hybrid battery system, where with the Enphase microinverter, all that does is convert from DC to AC. If you want to go with the battery system with Enphase, there's a lot of components involved. Between the combiner box and the batteries, and there's a lot of components involved with an Enphase battery system. Where Solark takes direct current. It's a DC charger. So essentially, the battery the conversion rate is better with a system that, you know, is like a DC side as opposed to the AC, like the Teslas and the Enphase systems where it has to convert. It's like, you know, from DC to AC into the batteries, from AC to DC, and then back to AC again. So there's a lot of conversions there. You get a significant amount of loss there, as opposed to the straight DC batteries. They seem to be a more durable, robust option.
So why were you trying to sell me the Enphase system?
It's higher margins.
It's better margins. Is that it?
Higher margins, baby.
The Enphase is good for micro inverters, you know, but as far as energy storage goes, backup battery, the SolarArc is definitely the better option there. Now,
well, you need both. You obviously need the solar part and the battery part. So what is the recommendation now if you wanted both?
Well, it would be, you know, the string inverter. If you want the energy storage, it would be the SolarArc system. However, the SolarArc system can take AC, direct current, and alternating current, so you can go either way. So you can take an existing system and add solar, add the existing solar system to the battery backup system. So, you know, in a circumstance where you don't need to optimize each solar panel, you can definitely save money going with the SolarArc system. But some of our clients like the fact that, you know, you want each solar panel having as much efficiency as possible. So in circumstances like that, we would add those PV links, you know, essentially optimizers in each solar panel to optimize the entire array. So, you know, you get the most out of it. So going with the Enphase system and hooking that up to a SolarArc system, you would get the best of both worlds. You know, you don't really need to go Enphase, but if you did go with an Enphase system and a SolarArc system, you know, you'd actually get you know, optimization with the solar panels, as well as, you know, getting the robust backup battery option.
Well, solar panels inherently, they're only about 20% efficient anyway. So it's like there's still a lot of room to improve just the solar collection side.
Yes,
to make better use of the technology and the gear that's downstream. So again, because we're a finance channel, and what we're looking for is information that helps us invest in the companies. We basically want to see who's got the competitive advantage over the other ones. A lot of what we talk about on this channel and another show that we do is that the installers, the network of installers for each of these companies is the actual moat of the business. That a good product can only take you so far if you don't have installers that are pushing this on them. So would you agree with that that the moat of these companies is the installer network? And second is, and if you can answer this, would be, what are those conversations like with either your distributor or Enphase directly when they want to onboard you as an installer, right? What are the incentives that they offer you in that sense? And then the follow-up question would be, once you have that relationship established and you have some of your systems out there and you have some backlog inventory, what would it take for another company to have you install their system or to have you switch what you recommend to your customers from the one that you've been installing?
Sure. So to answer your first question, I say it's not really the manufacturers that are selling us, you know, and showing us new product. It's actually more so our distributors. You know, so our distributors work directly with the manufacturers. With
Enphase in this case, or Solar in this case.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, because you know, being a smaller scale solar installer, you know, we don't have the warehouse and you know, structure, you know, infrastructure to be a distributor. You know,
how many installs per month, by the way, roughly?
6 to 8.
Okay.
Yeah, usually about 2 a week.
Okay, 2 weeks.
We're doing.
Well, I'm glad you said that. Before we continue, how many of them are Enphase or versus Solar or just another brand?
I'd say about 2/3 are Enphase and 1/3 SolarArc.
SolarArc.
Yep.
Not even SolarEdge, SolarArc, not SolarEdge.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So what are those conversations like with your distributors? Are they just saying, "Hey, we've got a bunch of these products. We need to move it. We'll give you a deal on it." And then what's that training like? Because you have to be certified.
Yes. Yep. And that's, it really comes down to answer, that really goes into answering your second question. It really comes down to price point and quality with the warrant, reputability and the warranty. So our distributors, their world, they're pretty, CED, Green Tech Renewables, they're one of like the largest clean energy distributors. We work with a handful of different companies, BayWa. These companies have extensive amounts of research into their products they take in. So they go into, we trust their professional analyses, on as far as taking on new equipment. And of course, we have to make our own judgment too. So when we're really determining what panels to go with, what inverters to go with, it really comes down to warranty, reputability, and of course cost. It's a combination of those three. And
what about the training involved? Like if they just said, "Hey, we want you to sell some Enphase systems,"
of course
they're completely different. Then do they require certification? Do you need specific a different type of electrician? It's like what's that involved? Is that at cost to you?
No, of course we have to pay our installers for their time. But Enphase has an 8-hour course, online, Enphase University, for example. Anybody can join up for it.
I want a diploma from that school.
Yeah.
I might get one eventually.
Got to get one of those diplomas.
Yeah.
This sounds
yeah.
awesome.
The Solar Edge too. They all have certain levels of training. The bigger companies like Solar Edge and Enphase have a really in-depth certification training where there's a quiz after every video and all that stuff. Where small, I wouldn't say smaller, so like companies like Solark, they're still establishing. They have videos online. It's like four 1-hour videos, but it's not like something you get a certification for. But you do have to go through like a process of like licensing and insurance, and they look at your of course your rep, your history as a company, to like essentially become a certified installer. So
I have a question. What's weird is that I thought you can buy the microinverters directly from Enphase. Are you saying you can't do that? You can't contact them directly as a installer and just buy it from them? You have to go through a distributor?
We can. However, believe it or not, it's more expensive to get it directly through Enphase.
Even as an installer, because you don't have a big supply, right? I guess correct.
Yeah.
All right. So after a certain number of installs, you get direct access.
It's the number of units you order at once. I think.
Sure.
Yeah. I would imagine there's certain levels there. But yeah, you ultimately the courses that you can become certified installers for they're relatively easy as long as you have all your insurance, your licenses, you have a good rep, and you pass their 4 to 8 hour tests, and then you're good to go.
I wanted to ask you at the top of the interview, but do you personally have any stake in any of these companies? Like, do you own stock in any of these solar companies, just so that we can be transparent?
I did actually in the early days have the solar. Yes. Yep.
He's like 10,000 shares of Solar Edge.
Solar. I own Solar.
Right, that's Solar. And I have puts on Enphase.
I would highly recommend it with Solark. If they go public, then jump in there on early. Those systems are phenomenal, the Solark systems. I got involved with Enphase early on, but I cashed out way before I shouldn't have cashed out too early, because they went up. The Enphase was a really good stock for the period there, and I don't remember
2.5 years. It just was on a tear.
Too. Yeah,
so you basically had it at like the $5, $10, $20 range, right? Somewhere in that range.
Yeah. Yep. Solar Edge is good. As far as investing, I'm not too much. I got involved a little bit in cryptocurrency, but stock market. Not
oh so man, much. You're a finance junkie, just like us.
So right now you don't hold any solar stocks.
Geez. A little bit. For what do we have stocks in? My wife's over here to the side. You know,
She's the purse string. She's
off
the
the top of my
CFO.
head,
PR. She's making sure you don't say anything silly.
I just let it sit there and do its thing. I think
Smart,
we still have
buying
some
hold.
Enphase, some Solar Edge, not a lot. You know, I know I sold 90% of my Enphase and Solar Edge stock back in the day. And you know, I know Q-Cell. You know, they're you know they're the number one North American solar panel you know, provider. They have the biggest footprint in North America. Q-Cell is certainly they're not going anywhere anytime soon. You know, then you know there's a lot of companies out there. I don't think I can give the best professional advice though, as far as what ones to invest in.
Well, none of this is financial advice.
Yeah,
I mean, just so we could say that disclaimer.
Well, I do have a question. So it
Yeah.
sounds like you're trying to move away from Enphase. That's what it sounds like, at least. But
Okay.
in terms of, maybe I'm wrong, you correct me, but tell me if this is true or not. We talked to a lot of installers, and a lot of installers say the reason we're going to stick with Enphase and not leave is because they solve our problems really fast. If there's an issue, it's solved in a minute. If there's a problem with the hardware, we will replace it. We will give you money to go replace it. So that's what installers have told us. And I'm not sure if SolarArc does all of this. I'm not even sure if SolarEdge does all this. So can you talk about that, the actual dealing with the companies, all of these companies you're talking about?
Sure. You know, that is the advantage with Enphase. You know, they take care of if something does go wrong. You know, they're going to take care of you know, we go out, do the step-by-step troubleshooting. If there is a problem with the equipment, they're really fast to get us replacements on the, you know, particularly the microinverters. Is the only things we ever really had issues with. And I'd say there's less than a dozen that we've had to replace, you know, in the 4 to 5 years that we've been installing them for. So it's certainly not, it does not happen often where there's something that actually needs to be replaced. It's usually something they can, you know, troubleshoot, or sometimes the wires, you know, gets loose or whatever it is. And, you know, we can go in there on site and fix it. You know, companies like SolarArc, they don't have, you know, a program where they pay for service yet, but knock on wood, we haven't had to go out and service a single one of our SolarArc systems yet. So that's kind of, I think, why we're biasly liking the SolarArc product.
How many of these SolarArc systems compared to Enphase, would you say, like an actual number?
Well, you know, there's probably, you know, maybe 50 SolarArc systems we've installed in the past couple of years. And, you know, probably a couple, you know, close to a couple hundred Enphase systems. But each one of them,
I mean, it's
20 or 30 of them. So you're talking, it was 2,000, you know, microinverters as opposed to, you know, 50 string inverters.
So, well, what you just said sort of scares me, as if I was a business owner. SolarArc doesn't have a way for you to replace the equipment where they will pay you for it. They'll replace the equipment, I assume, right? Within 10 years, is that right?
Yeah.
But they won't pay you to replace it, but you are warrantying to your customers that you will come and do it basically for free.
That is correct. Yeah.
So I don't know, it sounds a little scary, like the SolarArc thing. So I understand the inverter system, but wouldn't you do better with SolarEdge, where I think they would replace the inverter?
You know,
and they pay you for it, I think.
We recently got set up again where, you know, some of the systems that we installed a handful of years ago, you know, one we actually had to replace, and they paid for our time to go out there and troubleshoot it. They sent out a brand new one. So SolarEdge has fixed that problem, as well as Generac. You know, Generac is pretty, you know, they had a lot of problems. They had their rapid shutdown switches, their RS snaps, they called it, where we installed a handful, you know, I'd say about a dozen Generac systems, the power cell product. And they're, you know, I think they released their product a little too early, you know, to the marketplace. And they had a handful of, you know, problems with this Generac system. So we kind of have steered away from installing a lot of Generac, you know, recently, until the rumor is they're getting better. You know, we're still a certified Generac installer, but, you know, they have certainly, mastered the game in energy backup, with their gas products, but they need a little bit of work in their battery backup system.
I just wanted to get the answer to the follow-up question that I had about the
Sure.
installers being the moats. So what would it take for an emerging company or an existing company to have you switch to them as the primary system that you offer and install to your customers?
What would it take? The most important factors when people decide solar, is really, of course, the company, the service the company is going to provide, the products the company uses, along with the warranties, and of course, really the price. The kind of a combination of those, of those factors is really, what. If the price is really, really good, but the company's, Joe Schmo down the road who's, got a, who doesn't really have a solar company, then, you might want to second guess about the paying really, really cheap for a solar installation.
But it sounds like regardless to the end user, to the homeowner, they're going to get their system warranted. It's just a matter of who's paying for it. So you install the system, you're either eating the cost, or SolarEdge and Enphase are basically subsidizing it for you. So the question is, what does a company have to do to get your business? Because you're really the ambassadors for these brands. You're the ones that are telling these customers, hey, this is what we recommend. Here's the bid, yada, yada. It sounds to me like the margins are somewhat similar. So what does a company have to do to say dethrone Enphase as your primary go-to system to install?
Yeah, what was sold us personally, for example, we switched from Iron Ridge roof mounting material to Unirac recently. They're both major players in the game. But the Unirac guy stopped by in our office and he showed us, all the things they have to offer, and they offered us a free training where they come out and they show us they would supply us on one job install, the equipment, and send their techs out to train on the differences, and just the customer service, that goes a long way. We never met an Iron Ridge employee before. So we're using their equipment for all these years, and we're just the little guys to them, I guess. But the Unirac guys, they were very, they came in here and showed us what they got, and put their money where the mouth is. They helped us, get trained on their equipment on site, and we really like that. So their cost of quality, their quality is equal, and cost is equal to Iron Ridge, but it really was that customer service that made it there.
I want to pivot to rates. So right now, obviously, rates are super high, and all the quotes even I was getting, and yours included, the actual loan, if I was to take one, it seems like it's 9 to 12%, somewhere in that range that is going on. So how has that been convincing people to continue getting solar? Has that been an impossible task for you guys, or is it coming back? Is it dead? What is going on with solar right now?
It's definitely hindered the industry in a whole. The banks have gone up and up and up, and it's just it's certainly slowed down. We're still cranking out business, thank goodness. However, we're seeing double growth year after year ever since this last year, where the banks have really gone up. It's kind of plateaued, I guess. It's not really doubling our business like it was in the past.
You were saying you were growing 100%. Is this what you're saying?
Double digits.
Yeah. We were growing about double every year since we've been in business.
Yeah, that's not double digits. That's 100%. That's 3 digits right there. But so now you're saying you're stuck at the same level as you were a year ago. You're not growing at all.
Yeah, we're on pace to be projected similar revenue as we did the year prior. Maybe a little bit higher, but not double like we were.
But it's not going down. That's interesting.
Correct. Yeah.
So question about that. Does that put pressure on you as an installer to compress your own margins to get the sale? And then the follow-up question is, what do your bids look like, say, against another company like ADT? I recently found out that ADT offers solar. This like blew my mind that ADT.
Yeah.
I had no idea that they were doing this. And they also install Enphase systems. Because they're a much larger company, you presume that they could do many, many more installs across the country. And so they'd be able to accept a much lower margin on each install because they just are pushing more volume. Do you find yourself competing with the bigger players in that sense?
Oh, yeah.
And has the rate environment forced you to compress your margins a little bit to make up for a little bit of the increase that they're seeing on the rates?
Absolutely. Yep. We went a little tighter on our margins because of the spike in the
Interest
bank
rates.
rate and all that stuff. But when we compare to large companies, we have being a smaller installer, we have lower overhead, I believe. So we're able to be cost competitive, and I've seen our quotes compared to big companies like Sunrun and things like that, and we've had we've been substantially less, for $3,000 to $5,000 less, I'd say on average on some of the the bigger companies. So I think it really just comes down to they're doing a lot more volume, but they also have a lot more overhead.
I would like to verify that his price was one of the best prices. So it was basically extremely close between him and the other people. The only reason I went with them is because obviously I have a relationship and they provided certain incentives just because of that relationship. But if I didn't have that relationship, I would have gone with Dan's company.
Oh, interesting.
So
yeah, we certainly do good cost wise compared to the big companies. I'd say that's that's our advantage is keeping our overhead lower. We have 9 employees here in the company, so we have as opposed to these larger solar companies, they have thousands of employees. So I think their prices are usually higher because of that.
in terms of the, go ahead.
Just a real quick question about what percentage of your customers come to you and ask you, say, I want a SolarEdge system or I want an Enphase system, just to get an idea of the customer education that's out there.
Or I want a SolarArc system.
So what percentage of your customers come to you and say, I want this system installed, give me a quote, versus the ones that say, I want a solar system, and then you decide, here's what it is. And when you do those quotes, do you quote them an Enphase and SolarEdge system? Do you say, here's what it would cost for each of these companies, or do you just go with the one?
I would say it's very rare that when customers set on equipment, they're always looking for a professional opinion. 1 out of 50 people.
1 out of 50.
That's actually how we got involved with SolarArc. A customer from California. He owns an energy.
California. I live in California.
Yep. He owns an energy efficient audit company, and he moved out into our area over here in Pennsylvania. He called us up and he had a SolarArc system where he was in California, and he convinced us to give SolarArc a try, and thank goodness we did, because we've been really happy with the results and the the system. So that I remember that particular client convinced us to give SolarArc a try, and once in a while you get an Enphase, because they they've heard the micro inverters are better than a string inverter. So that, I'd say Enphase once in a while, but it's like 1 out of 30, maybe 1 out of 50 in that range. Very few people will say, this is the equipment I want.
That's
but you're giving 60-70% of them. He said 2/3 or whatever. You're giving them Enphase. Why are you giving them? It doesn't sound like you're bullish on Enphase products. You don't think they're the best possibly. So, but you're giving to 70% of the people. So,
well, I do think there, as far as the best return on investment, I do think Enphase is the best because, you get the best warranty, and which is 25 years, and you get the micro inverter option. You don't have to, it's really worry free for 25 years. The solar panels are 25 years.
That sounds good, by the way. Worry free for 25 years. I don't understand why you're not as bullish of what you just said. It's worry-free for 25 years. You as an installer don't have to see that customer ever again if you don't want to. So what am I missing here?
I definitely, Sorry if I came off wrong with the Enphase. Enphase is definitely our favorite go-to. It's just when it comes to energy storage,
Oh, okay. Batteries.
that's particularly where what I was referring to is and from our experience, when you can only back up with a 110T battery, the IQ10T. From Enphase, for example, you can back up 16 amps continuous, as opposed to the Solarc.
200 amp.
Well, it depends on which one you go with, of course, but it's 67 and a half amps if I remember.
So if you're not getting a backup storage, let's just separate the two for a second, and you're putting on something on your roof. What do you put on? Just bottom line.
Without storage, it would be Enphase.
And that's because 25-year warranty you mentioned, it's
Yeah.
worry free, as you
Yeah,
said.
sir.
Not my words. And by the
Yeah.
way, we both have Enphase systems on our roof. It is worry free. I haven't worried about it at all.
And while you had your power outage, I asked him the question about the solar edge. Like, why did the freaking thing keep dying from my water heater coming on? He's like, I've never seen that problem. He's like, you gotta open up the box and see if there's like mice running around in there. What did you guys put on my wall?
Rango mentions price. So is this a price issue now? Is Enphase too expensive, or is Solar Edge cheaper? Like from your, what is the perspective here? Or Solarc is just cheaper to go with that string inverter system? What wins at the end of the day when you talk to a customer? Is it the price? Always the price?
It's not so much. It's really the peace of mind. Just not having to worry about costs down the line. That's really what seems to be the most important to our clients is they don't want to pay service fees or replace any equipment 10, 15 years from now. So a lot of these string inverters, they come standard with a 10-year warranty, like Solar Edge, for example, and Solarc, Generac. It's they do have the options to extend the warranty. I think the only string inverter system currently offering a 25-year warranty is Solar Edge, and that just came out very recently.
And you do have to pay more for that, I heard. That wasn't free.
Yeah.
So is it a price thing, though? Are microinverters just too expensive? And do you think they should come down? And there's no discussion here about what people should put on the roof?
They are more expensive, but the question is it worth it? Like, is it worth it for a customer that the increased efficiency and reliability do you find that ends up being worth it? That you actually get the value for paying more?
I believe so. You can get a much cheaper system with like what I mentioned earlier, the SMA, for example.
Yeah.
Just a string inverter, Sunny Boy. That would be a much lesser cost system. However, you're sacrificing the warranty, the optimization on each solar panel. So really, when it comes to just, from our experience, what customers really want is something that they're going to be worry-free for, that as long as they possibly can. The 25-year warranty from the manufacturer and the solar panels, the microinverters, all the roof racking material.
When you explain that to customers, you're telling me they understand this, because they're non-technical people, I would assume. Do they understand why it's worry-free, and are they willing to pay the premium on it, or they're not?
Yeah, that's part of the sales process. We go through the equipment details during the consultation, and we like to offer a high quality package. Enphase is known for it's got the rep in the industry now where it's earned its quality reputation. So people are really want something they can put up there and kind of forget about it.
Here's a question from one of the people, Chris Patel, who's on our other show, but
Right.
this is a good one. Are you willing to put a Chinese off-brand like Hoy Miles? Are you willing to incorporate that into your sales, or have you looked into that at all?
Yeah. Hoy Miles, they do microinverters. They're a reputable company in the industry.
So are you using them? Are you planning on?
No.
Why?
Well, there's no solid reason other than we've just kind of stuck with microinverters, and and the Solar string inverter. I think Hoy Miles, I'm familiar with the company. I think they're a great product. I think it just comes down to what we kind of talked about before, is getting certified with the product and finding, shopping around with different distributors, and then in teaching our salespeople that, what are the benefits of Hoy Miles as opposed to an Enphase. But yeah, no, there's other companies out there, AP Systems. There's a lot of microinverter companies that are competitors popping up recently of the Enphase, but their price is not that much better, and they really don't. As far as I see, there's still a 10-year warranty. So that 25-year warranty is really the biggest selling point, I believe.
Have you heard of Tigo?
Tigo, yep.
And
yeah, we've done those with those they make optimizers particularly, and we've done the Tigo optimizers with the Solar systems.
Okay.
So I'm glad that you're talking about competition. While we have about 10 minutes left, the elephant in the room is Tesla. Although they sort of kickstarted this thing, it really seems like they either dropped the ball or deprioritized solar installations in favor of EVs, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But number one, are you certified to install Tesla systems? Is that something that you've done before? And
We haven't. Yeah. Go ahead.
And the follow-up question would be: if Tesla really made a push and started to prioritize solar systems, do you think that they have the opportunity to be able to capture a substantial part of the market share that's being enjoyed by, say, SolarEdge and Enphase right now, who have essentially run of the market, where Tesla can offer deals to monetize their current EV base, which is 4 million vehicles on the road, or even suffer at cost or really low margins to get the sale and monetize people on energy arbitrage, which is what they're pushing now in places like Texas. How do you see Tesla in terms of as a competitor?
So, they were, because you can go right online and get a quote right through their online system, and they do very similar. Last I checked, they were, if you didn't go with the Tesla solar shingle, they were doing the Q cell solar panels. Same thing as we're doing, and many other
black, like low profile panels.
Yep. So they're doing the same, very similar equipment, but a lot of feedback that I heard with Tesla is when you do it online, it's kind of one size fits all, and then the subcontractor gets out there, does the measurements, looks at the site. The customer gets one price, and then they get a second price after site survey, and it's usually, from what I've heard, is much different. So I think there was a lot of pushback from customers to the installers, all kind of pushing back on Tesla. I think that's probably why they kind of backed off on the market a little bit. The solar roof is a beautiful product. If they can just maximize that, the problem is they get the heat. Heat is not good for solar panels in general. So although they have similar efficiency, around that 20% range, once the photovoltaic reaction, once it gets above 110 degrees, it really drops efficiency. So I think that's kind of the problem with the newer solar shingles, as opposed to the traditional solar panels where it has some air venting underneath. I think that's the problem with Tesla is one, they were quoting one thing on the internet, and getting, when it came down to doing the install, it was a much different thing, and a lot of people weren't happy with the price changes and things like that, and they're they had quite a bit of an issue there. I don't think it's this case anymore, but I know the energy storage systems were hard to get for a while. So you'd install
batteries. Yeah, they were battery constrained for a while. Then and then once they figured that out, you could not get a solar system unless you had a backup battery. And now I think they figured out the supply chain where now they have surplus, where you like right now, Vitaly and I have Enphase systems,
Yeah.
and you could no longer buy a Powerwall a la carte. Now you can. So I think it's sort of back.
Yeah.
I think
It's
they
changing.
Yeah.
figured that part out.
Yeah.
Although
Can I
the
ask you?
Powerwall 3 looks like shit.
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I think they're trying to
Powerwall
make it
2.
cheaper too. But
Yeah.
because we don't have a lot of time, I do want to ask, why does Enphase make such shitty batteries?
I wouldn't say they're shitty. I think they're just
They're crappy. Like, I
they're
wouldn't say
very nice.
shitty.
They're a very good looking product.
We're talking about the 10T or the 5P. Can you delineate between the
we
modern
haven't
one?
done the 5P yet. The 10T we've done. We did one system that was actually three of them all right next to each other, 30 kilowatt hours. We've done a handful of the regular 10Ts. They're actually a very good looking system. It's just, the customers in our experience were pretty upset when, we couldn't hook up their well pump to it, for example, without adding some type of a surge suppressor, or something along. There's a lot more involved to get to back up the things that the homeowners want to back up with the Enphase system, as opposed to like a Generac or the Solarc system.
Well, the max power on the 10T, I don't remember exactly, but it was extremely low. It was on the order of under 5 kilowatts, right? 3.8, something like that.
They have one battery that's a 3. They're coming out now with a 5.
No, but the actual max power output. So that's why they couldn't run probably their well system or their AC.
Yeah.
So the max power was not there.
It's somewhere around 3,000 watts or something small like that.
So what about the 5P now? Does that solve it, or we're still in a problem here?
That product, from what I read, is certainly more powerful, like comparable than their 3T and their 10T. So I think that's what they're going to be pushing, and I think that's something that's new to the marketplace, and I'm not sure if there's that many out there to have a good solid opinion on that quite yet, but I might be wrong there. We haven't installed the 5 kilowatt.
Are you willing to do that, or you're just recommending Solarc? And I assume you're using EG4 batteries with the Solarc. That's what I think. But
yep.
Is that what you're recommending, or you're not going to the 5P at all? You're like, people don't do it.
Yeah, it's just price point. It's you pay more money and you get less backup power with the Enphase product. So, we'd rather offer something for a little bit less money, and where you can back up more. Really, that's what it comes down to is the cost and the power and the kilowatt hours. And when you can get the same amount of power or better out of a lesser expensive product, that's just what we feel is the better option for the homeowners.
That's probably why I'm going with the Solarc too.
Can you bring up George Manasseh's comment at 319?
Well, 319.
George Manasseh's comment at 319 and James Velez. George Manasseh says, we should take a moment to appreciate this gentleman. Major kudos for his knowledge and discussion. James Velez at 321 says, great questions, guys, and thanks so much for the insight, Dan, for real. And then a kind of a fun question to end this thing on. In the world of investing, you're either bullish on a company or you're bearish on the company. If you're bullish, you're behind that company. You believe in them. If you're bearish, you think the worst of them. Why is the company called Solar Bear?
Good question.
You got to be the Solar Bull, dude.
Solar Bull, yeah.
Solar Bull. We were, it came down to, it was a funny conversation my friend and I were having. His mother is actually a local marketing person. She does marketing for like a local magazine. Yeah. And so she goes to a bunch of different businesses and gets them to market in their business. And it was 2016 when we're in process of finally getting the company started. And I had some silly name for the company, and she's like, I just don't like the name of it. Something that rhymes with Solar Bear, or something that rhymes with solar. How's Polar Bear? And then her son, who's a good friend of mine, says Solar Bear Energy or something like that, and it just clicked. So I can't take credit for it. Actually, it was I thought it was good because it kind of represents the awareness of the ice caps melting. Polar bear, solar bear. It's kind of
it totally threw me for a loop when I first saw. I was like, we're talking to a solar bear today?
Right.
I was getting ready for a fight.
I do want to ask one question. Do you think solar in 2024 is going to pick up, or we are stuck in this high rate interest rate environment for the next 2-3 years. So we won't see pickup until 25, 26. What are your thoughts on the future?
You know what? For the very first time just yesterday, one of our banks lowered their dealer fees. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the dealer fee, how you buy down the points. Are you a little bit familiar with that, Vitaly?
Well, we've discussed it, but maybe you should explain it to people a little bit how that works. Because,
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, essentially, there's the cash price where many of the banks finance it at a 10.99. But then you can buy the points down to a 9.9 or a 3 or a 4.9 or even as low as a 3.99. The problem is the installers pay for that on the front end. They mark it up to the customer, so it's in the 30% range. It's quite alarmingly expensive now for these 3.99% to 4.99% options with these lenders.
So I want to make it clear that my system is around 80 grand, and then
Yep.
I would get two prices. One is 80,000, and the other price would be like 110,000.
Correct.
But the rate would be 2.99% for 25 years, I think, right? 25 years.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, to a lot of customers, I assume, who don't care, they just want cheaper electric, and they don't care about, because they're living in a house for whatever, 20 years.
Mhm.
All of a sudden, as long as their bills are lower, they don't really care, right?
Correct. And you'd be surprised how much lower that monthly payment is with the 2.99 at 115 grand, as opposed to the 10.99 at 80 grand. That monthly payment's actually much higher.
I know.
With the lower price, with the higher interest rate. So for those who are just on a monthly budget, who just want to pay the minimum payment throughout the 25 years, it certainly makes sense to buy it down and pay and go with the 2.9, 3.99. But for those who want to pay it off sooner, it's actually in the best interest to go with the higher interest rate option. And because there's no prepayment penalty with these lenders, these solar lenders.
So back to the bullish or the bearish thesis for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
If you have to put 10 grand into one company, and it's for your kids, and they can't sell it in 10 years, so I'm really incentivizing you.
Yeah.
Which company do you put it into?
Oh man, I gotta say Enphase. As far as the public stock trade right now, and
It's not financial advice, but that's what the owner of Solar Bear would
He
do.
sounded bearish. He
own
sounded
kids'
bearish
money.
in the beginning, but he's actually a bull.
You gotta draw little horns on your
That's funny. You got to get the horns on the bear there. That'll be cool. Yeah, get it going.
Okay, so besides the 10 grand into Enphase, which is a no-brainer at this point, honestly, but what about 2024, 2025, 22? When are we coming out of this solar winter?
Yeah, are you seeing a lot of pent-up demand here where people are like, man, when those interest rates come down, they'll get a quote and say, when that interest rate comes down, I'll give you a call and we're going to.
A lot of people are saying that, unfortunately. Yeah. A lot of, our what do you want to call closing percentage has not been as good this past year. Really because of the interest rates. That's their number one objection is they want to shop around and even shopping around for lending with home equity loans. Banks are costly all across the board right now. So a lot of people are just holding off because they're hoping and praying that interest rates come down.
So what is your opinion? In 2024 we return, 2025? Is this a couple of years of a solar winter?
Yeah, I think it's I think solar is just going to keep going up, quite frankly. The banks are slowing us down, but they're not stopping us. The solar industry in general is just, it's the cheapest form of energy. Even with these high,
for a long time. Yeah,
it's when you compare it to what they're paying with their energy company,
even at 20%. I mean, what happens when they come out with these panels that are even 30, 40, 50% more efficient?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a bear case there where you could say, well, customers to produce the same amount of kilowatts will need less gear. Less gear means lower price, means less revenue for you guys. So that's what one installer told me. One installer told me that they actually have the technology for 1,000-watt panels right now. Part of it is if they put those on your roof, you're going to have 3 solar panels on your roof, 3 micro inverters, and no one's going to make any money installing systems. Just what I heard.
Yeah, I guess that's an argument that could be made. But at the end of the day, the more people would get them, it would come down to volume. 3 panels, 3 microinverters. That would take a couple guys a half a day to go out there and install, right. So they can do 2 or 3 of them in a day.
Right. Yeah. No. But
so
it's interesting, that balance.
Well, when is this bullishness take over? I know you're saying it's going to return, obviously, but are you assuming next year? Are you assuming 2 years from now? So that does matter as an investment channel, of course.
I would estimate progressive growth. I wouldn't say I think the banks would certainly have a huge part if we can. It's just the feds in general. If they can get the prices down, then all the solar lenders will come down again.
What is that price, by the way? What price do people stop wanting to get these big purchases? Is it at 7%? Is it at 8%? Like where do they want to stop?
Yeah, that's probably around there. Yeah, the attractive interest rates are less than 5%. Once upon a time we had zero dealer fees with like a 6.5%. 6% interest rate, which is long gone now. Now it's now you're looking at like 11% with the 0 dealer fees options. So, when we first I'd say good 2024 would, to answer your question, I would say is going to be just I would say, it's hard to tell what the banks are going to do, but really I believe with the way the solar industry is going, the banks would have to go over 20% interest rates for us to really have, problem.
So you think basically you're going to return at the end of 2024 or beginning of 2025 back to doubling your business? This is the thought?
I believe so. Yep. Yeah, I believe so. We're crossing our fingers.
That's more microinverters sold, baby.
that makes a really good milestone with which we can check in with you again. Like I would love to have this conversation again. Say once the rates come down, a month or 2 or 3 months after, we'll see you smiling even bigger.
He won't have time to talk to us, by the way.
He'll be busy with his install.
Who knows?
But I think it'd be great.
I'll make sure of it.
I do want to point out in the description of this video, we will have your contact. It's already there. I should have put it there. And the link to so anyone in the East Coast, go check out Dan. He's a very honest guy. He's willing to deal with you. And if you want solar, give him a call.
SolarBearEnergy.com. Really easy.
It's going to be Solar Bull next year. So it's changing that, I'm sure.
Seriously, on behalf of everyone in the chat, as well as us on the finance channel and nerds of the tech, really appreciate your time today. A lot of great information. The hour flew by.
Guys, I hope I was helpful and was able to answer some of your questions and help your, all the folks watching get some good insight on the industry.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I could talk about this obviously for days, but
we do another show. We do a daily show that's live between 4 and 5 on my coast, 4 and 5, and we do talk a lot about Enphase and SolarEdge and Tesla, and so we could talk about this literally all day, and we do some days.
So Dan, not financial advice, but maybe some of that money you took out of Enphase a long time ago, it's time to put some of it back to work.
You gotta start dollar cost averaging, my man.
They do a dip recently, I saw. So
it's pretty down right now. Yes, 60% down.
It's a good time till the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, they own the marketplace for sure. So
they own the marketplace. There you go.
You heard it. That's it. That's it. Cut.
That's all I needed to hear.
Thank you. Why don't you just say that at the top?
Yeah, we had to wait an hour.
Shoot. Yeah,
guys. All right. Thanks, Dan. I'm gonna let you go. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for your time today, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Ending the stream.